Hi, everybody. Welcome. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us this evening, this Tuesday evening, for Dreaming the Queer Future, which is going to be a conversation with Peppermint and our New Visions Fellows. For those of you who don't know, the New Visions Fellowship is a program that was developed in collaboration with the National Queer Theater and the Dramatists Guild to offer a year-long training and career development program for Black, trans, and gender non-conforming dramatists in an effort to platform and raise their voices. So we are in the middle of that now, and they are doing tonight's conversation on top of writing and on top of everything else going on. So we're super lucky to have them with us. And my name is Jordan Stovall. I'm the Regional Programs Manager at the Dramatists Guild and the Program Manager for the New Visions Fellowship. And it is my absolute honor to introduce the New Visions Fellows, the inaugural New Visions Fellows for 2021-22. First, we have Ayla Xuan Chi Sullivan, Nick Hadikwa Mwaluko, and the lead mentor, Roger Q. Mason. And our moderator and host for tonight, Peppermint. So I will hand it over to all of you.
Hello.
Oh,
Hi, Gorge. Hello, beautiful.
hi.
Thank you so much, Jordan, for that fabulous introduction and welcome. And welcome to everyone. And I'm so happy to be here. Roger, it's a nice reunion for sure. In your face on Zoom yet again.
Yeah.
A year later, here we go.
Right.
We're used to this. And also, I do want to say, Jordan, it's wonderful to see your face again because Jordan and I go way, way, way back. But I'm very excited to meet and speak with everyone on the panel. And yeah, I think we should get started. My name is Peppermint. My pronouns are she, her. Just so you know. Oh, I guess that's a part of the thing. Okay. let me read the paper. So I'm not sure how the Q&A is going to work. Enter the conversations. How to use the Q&A features. I don't know that we've discussed that, but I will introduce myself, and if we can go down the line and introduce ourselves and say our pronouns, that would be great. My name is Peppermint. Pronouns are she, her.
Hi, my name is Ayla Xuan Chi Sullivan, and I use they, them pronouns. And when you're feeling spicy, you can sprinkle he, him in there, and I feel just as good.
Oh, spicy.
Hi, my name is Nick Hadikwa Mwaluko. Right now, I'm a gender abolitionist, but you can use he and they.
There you go.
There you go.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh, Lord, I don't know how to bring up the rear with those two, because they make my world go round. My name is Roger Q. Mason, and I am the lead mentor of this program, and my pronouns are they, them. And I do want to say that I did make that official on my ID this week.
Oh, wait, are you in, where are you right now?
Child, I'm in LA right now,
Okay,
but I'll be back in New York. For all our New Yorkers, I'll be back raising Cain in January. So get ready, darlings.
Well, that is awesome, honey. Work the driver's license and the ID update. That is a very liberating moment.
So important.
So I'm based in New York. Roger, you mentioned that you're in LA right now. Where is everyone else from?
I'm from the lands of the Cheyenne, Arapaho, and Ute that is colonially known as Denver, Colorado. But my new creative home base is Sugar Hill. And
Oh, you're a neighbor.
yeah,
Neighbor.
hey neighbor.
Nick, how about you?
I'm in Ohlone land, but they call it El Cerrito, California, Northern California.
Okay, so 2 folks on the west and 2 folks on the east. I love it. Well, very balanced conversation. It sounds like we will have. So let's talk a little bit about our creative work and approach to it, and how, just jumping in, how gender abolition connects with the creative work that we do, or how we balance those ideals together. For myself, I'm an actor and I consider myself a performer. Been so for a long time. Definitely more well known for doing drag performance, but also do acting, which includes drag performance, and drag performance, which includes acting, and singing and all of those things. And I'm just 100% invested currently in using my public platform to uplift the voices and stories and experiences of trans and gender expansive individuals, but specifically speaking to the stigma that is faced amongst the trans community between ourselves and our romantic partners, who are also usually responsible for the high murder, or at least contributing heavily to the high rate of murder in the Black trans and the trans community in general. And so that's kind of where I'm positioned with, and my investment in the larger conversation of equality for LGBTQ folks.
I will say this. I will say this. At 12 years old, yeah, she took off her glasses.
Oh, shoot. Let me take mine off too.
Child, we can't both be with our glasses. How we gonna?
I might be looking over here. Okay, let me put my back on.
She gonna be out there looking outside. When I was 12 years old, all I wanted to do was sing the blues. Literally and metaphorically, because it was a way for me, as somebody in the late 80s and early 90s who had no definition of self, to define, defend, and expand my ability to express who I was through song. I remember being taken off the stage by my, perhaps we'll say neutrally meaning, we won't say ill meaning or well-meaning, family. And that had a lasting impact on who I was, because I started to feel that who I was and how I manifested myself was somehow shameful and wrong. And it has taken me really about 20 years, almost 25 years, to come to a place where I was unabashedly, unapologetically who I am. And so if I were to name what I do now, I write freedom songs for the legendary children to come, so that they know that there is grace and power and beauty in being who they are, without shame, without apology, and without censorship. If we can dream freedom in the theater, then we can manifest it in the real world.
That was a poem.
Yes. Come on, poet. Go in, poet.
Nick, why don't we go to you, baby?
Oh, well, for this fellowship, Peppermint, what you brought up is really the play that I'm sort of centering the material on. And my response to those intersectional identities, because I think Blackness has a kind of stranglehold on the American theater. Oh, I should say rather, white supremacy has a stranglehold on Blackness and the representation of Blackness in the American theater. The real estate, the more expensive it is, the closer you get to Broadway, the closer you get to Manhattan, the more the policing is of what they want to see, who they want to see, and who they want to feed, and how they want to represent. So I think some of these stories don't get the attention they need because of that. There are certain stories that they think, well, we're already fighting a queer agenda. If we put the Black queer agenda in this lens, it's not going to represent us properly or represent us in the ways in which you want to be represented outside. But the death within a community, and more to the point really of the play, is the historical death that's been taken for granted of Black trans women, and how their bloodshed has led to really the modern struggle. And where it is, we wouldn't be where we are without Black trans femmes. We're literally climbing on their backs, on their shoulders, on their achievements, on everything that they've done, but we're not celebrating who they are. And we're not looking at ways in which they're decolonizing every single aspect of our lives. So I just, in terms of that particular story, that's where my heart is. And I don't know what the play is going to do or how it's going to do. That's what I want to do. What I really want to do is create a platform with the work where, to me, Black queerness and queerness of color is a mystical, religious, very spiritual identity, especially if you look at where it came from in the East. So we're in other parts of other cultures, we're divine, and it's unquestionable. It's not a question. In the West, where there's binary and where race is pitted against binary and gender is formed through race, it's a whole other story. So I think if we look to other cultures where like since the beginning, they've always known trans people and gender non-con people are a manifestation of the most highest, most divine forces. I think the stories will be decolonized. But that's the work that I want to do. I want to say, like, you see us this way. No, we've been the future since the beginning of time. And that's who we are. Yeah.
Well,
but that particular play I'm writing is not, I don't know if right now it's not going that way. But another one.
Okay, well, the next one. Wait, can you just, before we go on, can you talk a little bit more on queerness of color for folks that are listening?
Well, in my estimation, there is no gender without race. And so I think that when you bring in the racial component, gender, then in a sense, you can say all people of color are non-conforming genders, because when they think of femininity, the template is not a Black woman. When they think of masculinity, the template is the Black man is pitted against the, so race has a lot to do with the formation of gender. So when I talk of gender, when I talk of color, that component is a big part of like how to define it, what the lens that you're looking at, who's allowed to do it, and really how we police our own bodies to stay safe in a world that wants to kill us, but also our community polices us and says, if you do this, you're in, if you do this, you're out. I mean, we got to be honest about that component of it. But the divine aspect of it is real. It's been since the beginning. And that needs to be accented just as much. And I feel also, just to add, I'm sorry I'm taking so much time, but the other part to add about it is, I think the reason why the divine, because this is known in India and all places around Africa, the reason that is not accented is because it is uniquely of color. You know what I mean? Like, it's because it's uniquely Black and brown people who do it. There's an agenda not to make sure that it's not seen. So the binary, which is not of color, that gets the shine, and the non-binary gets it, and the non-color. But that aspect of, since the root to the fruit, we've had it like that. People, it's kind of like, because then it would be, we've always said these people are primitive and backward. How can they be thousands of years ahead? in that area.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Can I just jump in here and just highlight something? So for those who are not lucky enough to sit in on our sessions every week, we have a soul session, much like they used to in the Black Power movement. We have a soul session for the first 30 minutes of every meeting that we have. We sit down and just talk, because I say to these two, how often do Black trans minds get a chance to dance freely? And so we have this kind of dialogue every single time we meet. And this particular weekend, what Nick was talking about was the dichotomy between the outward expression of these cultures, which are viewed as third world or primitive, though they don't have the same material access to wealth. The wealth of philosophical expression is so far advanced in terms of gender, in terms of spirituality, in terms of philosophy and community, because while they were starved of the amenities of the West, they looked within, and you forgive me if I'm paraphrasing this, but they looked within and they developed a future world and worldview that is so far advanced from what the West has to offer to people. So in fact, they are actually 100 or 200 years ahead. The ideas that they have about gender and sexuality and race today, we will have to fight 3 or 4 wars, cultural or physical, to get to that place 200 years from now. That I thought was a fascinating assertion that that Nick made this past week.
Yeah. Ayla, tell us about it.
Yeah, I mean, as building from and honoring the things that were said, before me, I think first and foremost, my creative work comes from a place of being an abolitionist. And that means being an abolitionist, yes, of gender in terms of how it's been colonized for us and our expressions of that. And also an abolitionist because I truly believe in creating a world with no revenge and creating a world of forgiveness. And that means creating work that holds the people who harm me as much as it holds people who aren't me. And I think when you create from that place, everything that I make is therefore an expression of deep love. That means creating love letters, love poems, love songs. And it also is an exercise of talking about the truth of what we experience, because the more that I think about it, I truly believe that pain must be witnessed. And that means when we say that pain is witnessed, that's not in a masturbatory or, masochistic way. It means that for so long, our pain as Black people, as Black, queer, and trans people has been gone unnoticed, unwitnessed, purposefully hidden, that we are now seen as either inhuman or incapable of being harmed. The violence that happens to us should be allowed and can continue to happen because our pain is not being witnessed. And even more so, I think when our pain is witnessed through the guise of those who seek to harm us, it is only through entertainment and like an act of sympathy, right? So like, when people in colonized civilizations would execute one another and they would make them public events, it was like a way to keep people afraid and keep people feeling just enough, to feel just enough of, thank God I am not that person. So that's sympathy, right? And when you feel, thank God I'm not that person, you stay scared and you stay complicit. And I think that's the greatest thing, the greatest problem that I have with a lot of theater that is being made right now, because it's pain for the sake of pain, not pain for the sake of empathy, which is how we learn, and why pain must be witnessed, because pain is an evolutionary, it's an evolutionary right to us. In order to continue to evolve, we have to empathize and witness pain. So when we're talking about different cultures who are decolonized or have at least been able to hold on to their history, right? It's because they are evolving and understanding that witnessing human tragedy in all of its nuance and complexity is what keeps us moving forward and evolving, not pretending it didn't happen, not having debates about whether or not it should be taught in schools, whether or not we should see it on TV, whether or not we should see it in the theater where we go to gather. So that is first and foremost why I create and why I continue to be a part of an industry that seeks to harm me, quite literally.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Do you think that, has there been anything that you've seen that's come close to what you just described?
Well, I can say what I have seen that comes close is not accessible for everyone on purpose. Where I feel most celebrated, where I feel most safe to be myself has never been in a certain lort of theater. We can say that. Like where I feel safe, where I feel like, oh, this is doing something, has always been in spaces where we get to control, I'm saying we as queer and trans Black people and people of color can move and shape the space. So that has been in slam poetry spaces, even though they often get violent in different ways, but for the most part, yes. And also balls. I mean, come on, like the first ball I ever attended, I don't know if this super counts, but I went to the Creating Change Conference of 2016. And I had never experienced anything like that. And it was in Philly. So, you know, it's a different sort of vibe. But we had just seen how the country wanted to go. And instead I got to see wonderful Black trans women say, no, I'm a president. And this is the new presidential race here. And this is how we're going to build our world. And this is what we're going to do. Who's voting for me? You know, in the same time, honoring our dead that we had lost that year in a beautiful celebration and a dance. And there's also a slam component thing that I got to perform in as someone just like, oh, I didn't know I could be a part of this and thrown back and just confused, and then glorious dancing happening and people just being so in love with one another and the space. And that is something I have never seen in an official capacity, whether it's like on Broadway or if it's in a regional theater, because it's not supposed to be there. And for me, that's why I am less interested in engaging with spaces that would rather fill seats with people who abuse me every day on the street, who
And
literally
cater to
that, right? So I'm more interested in making that sort of creating change conference happen all the time where it's supposed to be, and feeding the people who want to be fed. I don't really think it's interesting to convince abusers to stop abusing me. I think it's interesting to create space for them to have restorative justice when they are willing and consent to that. You know, I don't think they're consenting to it now.
Yeah. What about you, Nick and Roger? Have you seen, besides what you are working on, have you seen anything, read or listened to lately that you really enjoyed or would like to share or discuss that gives at least a glimpse of some of this future that we're talking about?
We're going to hold space for that silence because
because it speaks volumes.
It speaks volumes. But I will say this. The two brilliant minds that are on this panel with us give me tremendous hope for the future of this craft. And not only them, but the finalists and the honorable mentions that received honor through this program. There were 43 people who applied to be a part of this fellowship. And every single one of them had a brilliant vision for how we can use theater and performance to truly move and transform culture. And so many of those visions came from vacuums. So many of those visions came from places where nobody could see because there were no lorts that were able to encompass that kind of vision. And for anybody that ever asks the question, are there queer, trans, gender expansive writers? We have a list of 43 today. And next year, we'll have yet another list, and yet another list will come in the years and years to come. There is an endless and expansive amount of talent in our community. And I truly believe that we are the great dreamers because we make a way out of no way. We truly are blues people. We take depravity, we take abuse, we take the forcing of invisibility and civic dismemberment. And somehow, some way, we still sing. We still sashay. We still dream. And how we do that is truly a wonder of the human desire to find love, even in the darkest and most desolate of places. And that, to me, I think is the future, to find love despite the desolation that is heaped upon you. But my answer to that question is really, every time I come to a session with Nick and Ayla, and they bring their pages to the room, I see a beautiful glimpse into what the American theater and the global performance work dialogue can be. And there is true hope in this room.
Nick, would you care? I mean, this was very, it's very beaming for you and Ayla, but I would like to hear if you have a response to that question about where, if anywhere, have you seen any type of artworks, anything in the mainstream, anything in professional theater that gives you at least some of that hope that Roger was talking about?
I see it like I see it in like Roger was saying and Ayla were saying, I see it in the artists that bring the work, and then, but the space itself, I just see it in the work of the artist. So probably the primary, I mean, in my experience, it's been, I'm not putting a plug or anything. My experience has been National Queer Theater, really. They've always held, they've held the people, the artists that they work with, and the work that they've held for me has meant so much, and the vision. And so I see it more in, I like more queer artists as opposed to, I mean, this is the only organization where I see it. I see it on television a little bit, but I also think that part of being queer is you take those canons and those things that have been, and part of being, you know, a queer person of color and Black queer person is you take those canons and you insert yourself because you know that they're not writing for you, you know. So you know, you see your father in Death of a Salesman, you see your queerness in those things, and that's kind of like how you get through and whatever. But if I would just say, for me, National Queer Theater and ballroom is phenomenal. I see it in books, I see it in whatever, but one particular space, no, I've not
As and Pep, I think you're looking for some tangible evidence of the future, and I want to mention these two places because they're at the top of my mind. In addition to National Queer Theater, there's a brilliant company in the Bay Area called New Conservatory Theater Company. And it's run by a gentleman named Ed Decker, who is, as I understand it, a mentor to the artistic director of National Queer Theater, and Adam. And I have been in dialogue with him, and I walk out of those meetings with him. And as an artist, I feel very seen and very honored and valued. And then the other place I want to mention is in Los Angeles. It's Celebration Theater, which is now being run by truly a firebrand visionary woman named Ann James, who just did some intimacy work on Passover on Broadway and has a couple other projects. So I want to mention those two folks and those names for those who are looking for the types of theaters that are amplifying queerness in an equitable and future-leaning way, in addition to this company.
Roger, I'm going to keep the question with you. Can you talk a little bit about the inception, the history, the realization of New Visions Fellowship?
Well, it really started out with a phone call from Adam. You know, in the height of the social revolution, and also, right, okay, and also the beginning of the high holy days of Corona.
Not high holy.
Child, you knew that. You knew you wasn't gonna be able to get through a conversation with me without some chicken shit remark. Hey, HowlRound. Hey, DJ. How y'all doing? Adam called me and said, I want in these times to figure out how to honor and help trans and gender non-conforming writers. And I was in a dialogue, and Nick, you were there too. And we had a conversation, a couple of conversations. And ultimately what I came to is I said, you need to create not only artistic opportunities, but professional developmental opportunities and also literary opportunities. And I'm going to break that down very simply. Artistic opportunities are pretty often what people normally get in these kinds of fellowships, which is, you know, monthly meetings and some dramaturgical mentorship on a play with a reading. That's very understood. But then the professional development element is important. How do we prepare the artist now that they have the script? How do they now negotiate for the future of that script? And how do they advocate equitably for themselves and for the work? So how do we talk to collaborators? How do we talk to literary managers? How do we talk to artistic directors? These types of professional, vocational based ideas are important because, you know, as playwrights, we are the CEOs of our own S corporations. And we run them like a business because they are a business. So it's important to have that balance between artistry and business. That's certainly been my experience as a child of the recession. If you were not entrepreneurial coming out of that, you wouldn't make it. Mm-hmm. And then the other part of it is the literary element. Now I'm on air and I'm gonna go ahead and say this publicly. I have a very troubled relationship to the way that we read plays in this country, because we read them, and we talk about this all the time in the group, we read them as literary two-dimensional works, which means stage direction and movement, duration exercises, all of these things that we like to call narrative potentiality, the elements that can't necessarily be recognizably and fulfillingly absorbed through something like dialogue, what they said. All of those elements of a play many times get overlooked. And so there was a writer director that came in, A. Boylan, this past week. And I brought them into the session because I love that they preached a beautiful gospel. They wrote about a 30 or 40 page play called Virgo that was a lot of movement and performance work. And a lot of the play happens in physical theater, not necessarily in dialogue. And they have a disclaimer at the beginning. Readers, do not think that just because this play is 40 pages, it's not a full event. So much more happens in addition to dialogue. And so one of the things that we talk about in our work, and these two really understand this, is how are you not just writing for the talk, but also for the body, for the stage, for the space, and how do you express that on the page? And more importantly, how do you advocate for that and initiate dialogue with theater decision makers? Because sometimes we have to bring the book and the play too, how to read the play, and that's fine. That kind of narrative intellectual ambassadorship is fine, but that's something that we talk about in this fellowship. How do we help people read queer work? Because it has a different way of expressing itself than traditional, 12-step hero's journey, Joseph Campbell. We're in another country, and we have different and unique ways of telling that may not be familiar all the time to those accustomed to reading in one way. So those were the three elements that we brought. And then from there, I worked with Emmanuel Wilson, with Jordan Stovall, with Adam, and to develop the curriculum, so to speak, for this program, which was based on equipping folks with this trifecta: the art, the literacy, and the professional acumen. And those are the three pillars upon which this program stands.
So what do programs like this mean to you as a queer creative, Ayla?
Well, I think that where a lot of younger writers and maybe just writers who really want to create, and especially writers who are Black and trans, we can often think that we're supposed to follow a sort of like rule set of blueprints of like, oh, once we get this, then we will get this, then everything is going to magically, and no one will say anything about me being trans anymore, and all these things. And it's this sort of like hunger and accumulation of capital that just is really heartbreaking, and you don't know until you've already gone through the hurdle of it. And so to me, this is a very important program because I get to be my full self. I don't have to hunger and fight and compete for something that will never serve me regardless. And I really believe that the reason why a program like this is so important is because I have this space to dream bigger than just having a play somewhere with some director with an audience of people who literally want to harm me, and just assuming that will be enough. Programs like this are wonderful and this program is wonderful because I get to decide what my enough is. And I get to decide that I am already enough. And that is celebrated, and that does not happen enough. Also, I guess I'm learning to just not be surprised by that anymore. I think it's really intentional that there's a lot of spaces that want to create community and family and all of those things without actually understanding what community looks like, or understanding that what it takes for me to enter this room is different than you.
Right.
And so being in this space is lovely because I'm always like what it takes for me to be present today in New York City on a Zoom is always welcome and understood, like truly in the body, in the spiritual body also.
Nick, can you tell us more about what the show, what the Well, no, I'm skipping ahead. Can you tell us more about a couple of things that you've encountered in the fellowship so far?
I'm sorry, sorry, Peppermint.
Can you tell us a little bit more about some of the things that have occurred over the course of the fellowship so far that you've
Oh,
experienced?
we've had great speakers, great people like you that we've met within community.
Such things.
No one is like you, but great. That's a faux pas. I'm sorry, sis. But
Oh,
we've
that's
had we've had greatness talk to us. We have a fantastic mentor in Roger, genius, total
great.
visionary. I get to talk with another visionary like Ayla, genius too, who's real and raw and honest and spiritual. That's important. We look at the pages and we look at the work. We discuss so many things within the industry, within the culture. And I think it's exactly what Ayla said. You've got a community where you can bring your full self to, no judgment. And we don't, it's not about we've reached the mountaintop and now we're looking over the arc in the sunshine. Everybody is here with us. We talk about everyone who participated in the process since its inception. So it's not about leaving people behind or we're the ones and we're at the top, and it's none of that nonsense of there's one seat, everybody kill each other so that we, it's none of that. So I'm the single, and I define an era or a group of people that is, I'm the monolith. So that to me kind of like, I like that aspect of it, that you're not being I don't like that approach of I'm the one and I rep, and so I keep everybody down and silence other. So hopefully by the end, and I really mean the end, like the end of the world kind of thing, it'll be an entire menu of Peppermint brought, Nick brought, Ayla brought, Roger brought, Adam brought, and there's not a single one line that says, but it's a whole entire menu. And that will be the artistic experience of our culture and our people. And I think that the mentality of the program is like that. It's like, who can we bring to this event who we can amplify? It's not about diminishing other people's light and their brilliance. And saying, Peppermint, you're brilliant, doesn't take away from Ayla, Roger, Adam, Jordan. So I like that spirit, really.
And you should tell them that we've rewritten the book, so to speak, or rather expanded on it. The traditional models of feedback. We wrote our own additional questions. We honor and we appreciate what folks like Liz Lerman have taught us about a constructive relationship to feedback, but then we've added 7 other questions about relationship to space, relationship to spirit, relationship to each other that kind of keep going. So, it's really powerful to watch us create an additional vocabulary, honoring the folks that have come before and done really important work to make discussions about art constructive and centered on the improvement and betterment of the work. But then how do we keep asking? And that's been the other thing, is building a vocabulary with you all and through you all to expand the work.
Roger, can you tell us a little bit more about the final showcase that's coming up in spring 2022?
Hell, darlings, let me do this.
Oh, yes, honey, get it ready.
There's a flower here. And my brassiere is pushing everything forward because, girls, we are going to Carnegie Hall.
Wow! Oh! Let me get my outfit together, honey.
Yeah, you better get your outfit together. That's right. We are partnering with the wonderful, and I don't know if I'm supposed to say this, and I'm sure the producers will slap me later, but if I'm not supposed to. But we have had a wonderful opportunity to work. Oh, go for it.
Go for it, honey. They're ready to go.
You see, I waited a little bit.
You waited, and you did it right. Okay, let us have it.
Carnegie Hall could be a metaphor and a queer speak. Producers, they do it. All right, good. All right. So Adam brokered a really interesting opportunity for us to do a showcase with Carnegie Hall Performances. They have an Afrofuturist festival all around the city of New York. It's about a month from February to March of 2022. And I think it's in the middle. I think it's either the 21st of February or the 28th of February. We will be on MCC's stage doing a showcase of these two lovely people's works, excerpts from their work. I'll do a little pattern. I may do a little cabaret song for you all as well. And we're actually writing the script. We're starting to work on this is what the producers don't know, but we're going to do it live. We're starting to develop the script together so that it really is its own show, uniquely created for this occasion in partnership with MCC, National Queer Theater, Dramatists Guild, and Carnegie Hall. So we, as transgender, non-conforming Black folks, we are in the house, baby. And it is just with such pride and such joy that our inaugural year, we're able to have this partnership. So look out for more information, because in February, we
Take to the stage.
taken to the stage, baby.
Nick and Ayla, can you tell us more about, and Nick, you kind of gave us a little bit of a glimpse, and if you care to say any more, we'd love to hear it. Tell us about the play that you are writing and working on for the fellowship. And I know there's the one that you might have alluded to a little bit earlier, but let us know get us buttered up.
Well, get ready for mine, because my play is proudly called For Colored Niggas, or Who Gonna Beat My Ass. You won't. I'm too scary. And it is literally only for colored niggas. It's just a time to be niggly, proudly in a space. And I literally am making it only for us, by us. FUBU is back. Okay.
I never got to wear it as a child.
And now you can. You know what? We can ask Miss Carnegie if we could get t-shirt guns, and Cool J can fly from
Damon Johns never knew, honey.
Thank you. Yeah, that's my love letter. It's just a bunch of different vignettes that is audience generated, so that the audience gets to pick how the show occurs. And there's sketches, there's music, there's light skin antics. And so, you know, if you've ever heard of Gremlins, that's what's going on. It's just me going, wow. So yeah, I'm very
excited. Like my kind of show.
Yes.
My kind of evening.
Yes. We need you.
I'm excited for that. Okay, so Nick, not to be out to, you don't need a t-shirt gun, but we would like to know what you're planning.
It's kind of like the opposite side of okay. In a way. It's called Silence is a Sound, and it's about it asks about healing. What does a Black trans woman's healing look like in a world where she has to make her space. She's got to fight for her space. It's about it really is. It's about intimate partner abuse within the Black trans community, and how this beautiful trans woman, trans femme, actually, she heals, and what happens in the relationship as a result of that, and how she goes through it. So it's about her power, and how she relocates it and reclaims it.
And the conceit, we won't say anything, and maybe you'll get to that in the piece, in the excerpt that you show, but maybe not. But the way that Nick has constructed this play thematically is really quite extraordinary, and they often have this kind of surprise, this thematic unraveling in the second act that's always brilliant and always exciting to watch. The mental process of how to get there is so visionary, honestly.
Thanks, Rose.
I'm going to do a little bit of a speed round here and ask, what is it? Anybody can jump in, but keep it kind of brief for time if you can. What was a joyous or inspiring moment that you might have witnessed or experienced of another trans or gender nonconforming narrative or story or work of art, what have you, that you'd like to share, if at all. All right, next question. What are some personal and professional experiences you have had as a trans GNC creative navigating the entertainment industry that you think that might be relevant to this conversation? I think you both really actually highlighted and exemplified a lot of the things. You've already answered this question, I believe, but I'm giving you another opportunity to do it because it is on the page. But if not, we'll go to the next.
I just want to say that because I think at least for people who are like young and saying, you know, and worried about like going into a room and saying their pronouns and will they be honored, and you know, a lot of anxieties about that. I may seem and appear very cynical, and it's because the world made me so. And I just want to say that I've been fortunate enough to be around people because I know how to advocate for myself, and because I know that if I stay quiet when people misgender me and harm me, that means that it's to some degree, it gives everyone in the room who is witnessing permission to continue doing that behavior. And so I just want to encourage anyone that feels like, oh, maybe I won't get this job if I talk about, you know, or maybe I should lessen myself or make myself smaller to get this certain gig or job or whatever. I just would like to say and encourage that we are in a time where there is a reckoning. Right. And we are in a time where there are more people willing to be put in their place. That's just you know.
Yeah, the door might close. I was thinking that the other day. I was like, "This, honey, how long are we gonna get these people listening to us and at least like turning when we speak up?" Yes. You know, it's obviously not where we want to be now, but they're participating and at least understanding that they need to listen. And so I just hope that we can have that long enough to get all the things we need to get.
Yes.
Or as much as we can get while they're doing it.
Yes. And also to get enough to stop asking for them to give us things and make our own, you know.
Boom.
That part. Can I just go back to your previous question, Pep, real quick?
Yeah.
Because you were asking about a fulfilling piece of trans art.
Yeah.
And I mean this, there's no bullshit here. Your album was extraordinary. Your album is storytelling. And I have not really, outside of maybe like Tracy Chapman and Michelle Ndugacello, have I been as enraptured by a holistic and really fulfilling story from one song to the other, a concept album that really lulled and surprised and excited and filled me. So that was one of my highlights. And when you asked that question, I immediately went to that album, you know.
Thank you.
So thank you for sharing that with all of us in the world.
For everybody that's listening that doesn't know, it's called A Girl Like Me, Letters to My Lovers. And it's about everything we've been talking about today, pretty much. And there's a short film Roger, I don't know if I told you this, but there'd be, instead of doing individual music videos for all the songs on the album, because during the pandemic we couldn't really do anything, I created a short film of all of the music, which is like it's a narrative, and you know, it's acted, and I'm really proud of it, and that airs next month on Out TV, and it's also featured in the LA Queer Film Festival and the Tel Aviv Film Festival, which are both happening this year. And so folks can check that out. I'll be posting about it. I got to make a note to post about that. But I'll be posting about that. So thank you for mentioning that.
Can you give us a sneak peek? A line or two, a little.
You know, I'll say a line because this is one of the things that you spoke about. Nick, and I'll say, here's verse 2 of some of the lyrics. Here we go. Let me pull it up.
Y'all see this exclusive? Hey, HowlRound. Hi,
Gonna sing
NQT.
it?
Hello.
Pep, you gonna sing it for us?
No, I'm gonna speak it like it's a poem.
Oh, she gonna sing it.
Okay.
I mean, we ain't ready for all that. Well, I'll just do the 2 verses. A girl like me can light up any party and hold a crowd in her hand. A girl like me can turn heads on the runway and travel off to distant lands. A girl like me knows how to make her money. She's just as smart as she is cute. She's strong and doesn't take it from nobody. A girl like me knows how to live her truth. A girl like me isn't always seen as equal, and sometimes not one at all. A girl like me can't give a man a baby, and when trouble comes, she's first to take the fall. Girls like me are scared and angry, but we always find a way to smile, to belong, to be loved in the arms of someone. A girl like me.
Yes.
Yes.
Poet.
Poet.
Darling. Oh, let me get my black turtleneck, honey.
Yes.
And you weren't gonna give that to us. You're gonna leave that for Tel Aviv?
Honey.
Oh,
Thank
Lord.
you. Now let me ask y'all. Let me go to the next one. What does this one say? Where do you see? Okay, I think this is quite apparent. It's so apparent. I don't even know if we need to really. The question is the answer. Where do you see opportunity for the American theater? I'll say the American professional theater. To do better.
Where don't we?
Where don't you? I know. This question, but that's on the paper. Is there anywhere where they're just doing great?
I would love to see it. I would love to.
I'm going to say this, and here I am. I'm going to spout out at the mouth. They're going to censor me. We are trying to. Art is a tricky thing because because art in this country, and I'm not just talking about the American theater. I'm speaking very generally. Art is a thing of the spirit. Art is sublime, and so the real question becomes: what price can you put on divinity? And the answer is none. And so we exist in this country, not only in terms of theater, but in terms of our relationship as a capitalist and commercialist society. We exist in a quandary because the question is, how do you put a price on the human spirit? And the answer is you can't. Now, from there, they're trying. And in trying, that's where the follies happen. So the issue becomes, how can you approximate to the best of your ability as a theater, how to honor the work and the contributions and the emotional and transgenerational labor? Because it's not just that person that is coming into the room. They're bringing their mama, their grandmama, their grandmama's grandmama, and all that trauma and all of that insight. They're bringing that. How can you equitably honor that? You'll never repay it. You'll never repay it. But how can you make that person feel, I appreciate you, I see you, I value the contributions that you make to this room and this world and this society. And though I don't have all of the coffers at Fort Knox at my disposal, I know this, that in my little fiefdom, I can do what I can to say thank you. And if people can come from a place of good intent in our business, of equitable and noble intent that truly honors the labor that it takes to write these plays. Do you think it's easy writing for colored niggas, or Silence is a Sound, or Lavender Man, or any of these other plays, or A Girl Like Me? Absolutely not. We have bled and wept to bring you art.
Mm.
And the least that the world can do is say, child, thank you for your troubles. Because you wept, I can now laugh and be free, because that's what's happening.
And learn.
And learn and grow.
Well, but even building off of that, right, is that the American theater has to reconcile its roots because of how it is inexplicably tied to capitalism, which is inexplicably tied to exploiting the laborer, which is inexplicably tied to exploiting Black people's labor, right? So like, if we are reaching the divine, if we are truly making work that is for engaging in 4 dimensions, as you talk about, Roger, with engaging with the sublime, right? That means that the American theater can no longer be about making white people feel comfortable enough to laugh at the people they oppress. That's where they must be better. And that means that you cannot be so comfortable in your nonprofit theater job, in your nonprofit theater salary, and your money laundering that's happening, that you want to be a good person, because your idea of a good person is simply based in white supremacy, is simply based in morality that harms us. So the way that to be truly better means you have to dismantle the capitalist the notion of theater in that way, of entertainment in that way, right? Because when you're talking about labor, to honor it is to make it a public good, which we already did with WPA. So bring that back, give people jobs again, make theater a public good and a public service. And if you actually do that and you work from the place of a public servant, we wouldn't have to do these EDIA, LMNOP, circles anymore.
Well, I do think that kind of what I'm hearing and building off of that a little bit is, I mean, the proof is in the pudding. We're in a situation right now where we're hearing the pain of the community, of the queer, the Black queer, the queer community in general, and honestly several communities, but definitely the Black trans community. We're hearing how that's not congruent with a certain streaming platform and their choice to have a particular comedy special, and how they're not able to sit right to reconcile those two things, because they have to choose between honoring the contract. Obviously, there's a contract of a performer who is highly paid to have this special, or listening to the demands and the pain of the community. And what do you choose over making money and getting eyeballs on that content? And so it's when it is for profit and people are having to have their subscriptions, then someone is going to end up it's going to be at the expense of someone. And it obviously is us in this situation.
Well, we learned that in slavery, how to make money at the expense of other people.
Yeah.
We learned that. We had 400 years of practice in that.
Oh yeah, that ain't new. That ain't new.
That ain't new. Now the real issue is, and Ayla, you started it, and see, you have a shovel, you have a philosophical shovel, and you started digging. So now I need to dig a little bit more. We have lost sight of the spiritual and civic duty that we have to support artists, because they are our connection to the divine. You beautifully mentioned my statement that we don't write for 3 dimensions, we write for 4. We write for the sublime, because when you write a piece of art, you are transcending the mundane world and you're speaking directly to spirit. And that in ancient Egypt was a paid and socially sponsored job. It was a part of the religious and civic function of the society. They understood that without those writers telling us the stories of how day turned into night and the hours went by, the crops would fail, the rivers would flood, and there would be no balance. We need artists because they reflect back to us what we're doing and what we're not doing, and they bring us balance. And it is essential. We are essential workers to the manifestation of the human condition. And that is something, when you are a profit-based society versus a people-based society, that you lose sight of. Now, the real issue with the American theater is that it has tried so hard, I believe, to divorce itself from its roots, which was in minstrelsy.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And did they successfully do that?
Never. Never. Because otherwise we wouldn't have to see rap, which is for us, be misinterpreted and talking about, oh, how much I would love to Shuck and Jive the musical to be a colonizer, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Or even the reviews of Chicken and Biscuits.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, what's going on with that play?
I haven't read the reviews.
What's going on with that? Give us a skinny.
It's a massacre. It's a massacre.
Oh,
for that artist. I don't even know. It's a massacre.
By the critics.
Yeah. Yeah. But you just knew from the title of that play
it's not for them to get or understand.
Yeah.
Right.
What's that book that about the African Shakespeare Company? This is not for, this is not. Oh, there's a book about the African Theater Company making work that is for us and not for, I'll say, currently majority culture. The issue, and this goes back to literacy, is we need to learn how to read and appreciate our own work. And to tie everything together, how do we read and appreciate our own work and not depend on these other systems for affirmation and validation? You see, you become a slave to the mind. You depend on that affirmation of those systems of power so that you feel like what you're doing is worth something. And see, I'll never forget when Adam came back from that picnic with you and said, you know what Ayla said? I don't need no show to be on the Great White Way to know I'm great. You remember you said that to him?
Yeah.
And that shook me. That shook me because it made me, now, we ain't gonna say no to no Broadway check. Hey, HowlRound, hey, everybody. We won't say no to the check. But there's a difference between willingly participating in a system from a place of agency or depending existentially on that system to know that we are worthy.
Right.
One of them is from want and the other one is from need and dependency. And what we're doing is liberating ourselves in spirit.
Mm-hmm.
We're trying to go 200 years in the future. We're trying to follow what Nick is talking about, these cultures of the quote third world, which are 200-300 years in the future, because while you denied them the physical world, they became rich in the metaphysical world.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Everybody's
up in here, honey.
A lot of people are calling out Chappelle for what he's doing. The moment is now. I know.
Yes.
You're talking about the business. You're talking about the business. You're talking about the business. I just wish a bigger army of people would come up and be like, we'll shut this thing down.
Because the time is now, and I'm like, I saw just very, not even speaking about art or theater, speaking just in general about the conversations we've been having over the past 2 years and a half during the pandemic. It's like, I think it's a girl, burn it down.
Right.
Burn it down.
Burn it down.
Burn it down.
Burn
It's
it
not.
down.
It was never meant to work for us, and now everybody's realizing, oh, this isn't for you. We have to burn it down.
But see, let me say this, Pep.
What?
And glasses are coming off again for the
Lord,
last
mine
time.
too. I need check.
We need to take our glasses off so we can see.
I'll be able to see.
Let me tell you this, Pep. This was the gift. This was the gift of coming out of college and coming into myself in the Great Recession because didn't nobody give me shit. I didn't have any affirmation systems other than everything I had to do. I had to build on my own. I was my own person in my own country. And these children that come after, very entrepreneurial, like Ayla, who are decolonizing space and writing work specifically for the community, that's a direct reaction to the decentralization of place and space as a signal of arrival. Home is within you. Home, that's what Judy was trying to tell you all. Home is within you.
All right. Get my ruby slippers, honey.
If you can't be solidified and confident in who you are and what story you're telling, you can't nobody affirm you. And if you exist in a world or a place where you have no options but to rely on yourself, your wits, your intelligence, and your innovations, like these 43 applicants who are in many cases fringed on the outside of the dominant cultural theatrical conversation, but they've come up with another world and another country. Why? Because they had to. Because they had no choice, but more importantly, because they wanted to.
Right.
Because they had no choice, they've created an entire world on their own. That's the great lesson of this fellowship. The great lesson of this fellowship is the world is what you make it. And you will make it if you know with confidence and grace and gratitude, because we ain't bitches over here. We all
speak for yourself.
Listen, I'll say this. I am always grateful when people are willing to be fair and willing to listen. I'm always grateful when people are willing to be fair and to listen and to be right. Just do what's right.
And because everything else just falls into place when we're all
absolutely
energy.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Right.
Do you think we should put some questions in, babies? Because I know
we should. I'm going to try to. Let's ask if for you mean from people watching.
Yeah, we done talked.
We want to answer some questions from people watching, and in the same time, so please put your questions in the chat. I'm going to have to change my view on here so I can see what is up, and I'm going to move it over here. Put your questions in the chat for our panelists, please. And in the meantime, I'm going to ask a couple questions. These are more rapid fire questions. What are some ways that theater producers and people creating, just the creators, can let me truncate this. What are some ways that they can do more to foster and develop trans and GNC creatives? But in addition to fellowships like this, tell me.
That's what I think. What would you do for your cousin? What would you do for your, because they know.
They know. Honey,
they already know.
This is.
Did you just invoke nepotism without saying it?
Yeah.
Well, listen. When I get on that phone, honey, I am notorious for putting a customer service representative agent through it on the phone. And when I'm on that phone and I'm trying to explain to them what my situation is, and they transfer me from department to department, and then by the time once I get frustrated enough, I'm like, listen, honey, this is my situation. Now, if you were in my shoes,
right,
what would you do?
Do unto others as you would have them do.
Then you can get somewhere.
Right.
When they answer that question honestly.
Right. Right. Because I'm actually very tired of trying to come up with solutions that I didn't make the problems of.
Hello?
You know what I'm saying? Hello? Because you would do it, you know what you want to do. You're just too scared. You're too scared to give up your job. Let's start there.
BC Granger asked where we can find some of the additional questions for feedback. BC, I am really thankful to you for your curiosity about the questions. They will be published as part of an article that somebody's gonna publish.
We're gonna.
Hi, HowlRound. How y'all doing? We want to come to you and talk to you about this too. But we're going to write an article on writing queer theater. And I want to include those questions as part of it. So that's one thing that's coming out. And if it doesn't come out there, we'll find another way. But thank you for asking that question.
Okay, well, here's another question. How can artistic thought leaders, decision makers, and entertainment professionals that may not fall in the trans and GNC communities be better allies? I mean, I feel like it's, okay, go ahead. Let's hear.
You do it. You do it.
Oh, I was just saying exactly what I said. What would you do for your cousin?
Yeah, that's that. That's it. Those are the two same questions.
Mm-hmm.
What are some things to consider? It's okay. That whole section is, they know what it is. It's the whole section is the same. I mean, these questions are obviously very well meaning, and they're trying to unearth some tools that people can plug and play and start using right away. But we already know, we've been talking about it for so long. Not tonight. Oh, there's my pizza.
Yes, pizza. Yes, pizza.
So why don't you answer, what are some ways to promote accountability for inclusion and access to opportunity, while I answer the door? 1 second.
Accountability.
Accountability for inclusion.
Accountability for inclusion.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You've really just got to speak up, I think.
Mm-hmm.
You've got to call out the exclusion.
Mm-hmm.
And be brave enough to not only call out the exclusion, but also come prepared with questions for how are you going to solve it?
Mm-hmm.
Because you see, the issue is not just calling it out. That's the first step. The next question and the next step is, now that we've called it out, what are we going to do to change it?
Mm-hmm. And also, I think it's very easy for people to start from a place of, I'm so bad at this, or I don't know what I'm doing. And I'll never understand this experience. And when you start from that place and you say it over and over again, you believe
Bad,
it.
don't, never. So let's change that. Let's do it.
Right.
Let's do it expansive instead of a contractive version.
Right. So instead of saying that, it's that that's the problem. And it is on me to, if you're somebody who's saying that, it is on me to figure out the solution. Figuring out the solution looks like listening, coming to panels like this, looks like reading, looks like engaging, looks like, what am I so afraid of? And is it really about just having somebody put me in my place and having a different power dynamic? Because that's really what restorative justice aims to do in terms of talking about accountability. It aims to say, how can we level the power dynamic at place between the person who needs to be held accountable and the person who's being abused and harmed?
And also critical race theory.
Mm-hmm.
How in the hell do you get to do, now I'm not putting this on any singular person, I'm speaking very globally now, looking at the systemic problem of racism. How does a society enslave another society, and then all of a sudden when it's convenient say, I don't know how to engage with this?
Because they'd have to give up. So, but the other thing is, you're in art. You're not in business, you're not in whatever, you're in art.
Right.
If you're in a room as an artist where everybody is the same, there's a problem, because the art itself reflects the world. Theater equals life. Life doesn't look like the same fucking people with the same sexuality, gender, whatever socioeconomic class, and you call it and say that we're okay because we got this. And when you do include us, and inclusion is a power trip, you're not including us, we're including you. But okay, if you want to put it that way, stop policing what we say so that you're comfortable and you're okay.
Mm-hmm.
We got issues with the system. So do you, or you wouldn't be looking, because it's
and we need to stop policing ourselves too, to try and be respectable.
Right.
I'm gonna throw that one in there.
Right.
I know that's controversial.
Right.
The respectability politics.
Respectability
piece just keeps
politics.
us
It's not gonna take us
right
anywhere.
in line.
Mm-hmm.
It's not gonna take us anywhere.
Yeah, that's right.
Like just saying that you're an artist and everything is the same and it's been the same for 50, you should have a problem. I mean, I don't understand. You should have a problem with that. And when people don't come from your experience, whatever that looks like, and they're relating, stop making a one-on-one translation. There is no equivalent to a white experience in a black. We come from a completely different experience. It's okay. That's what humanity is about. Stop trying to say, well, my people, you know what, Ayla, you said, how would you treat your cousin? White people treat their cousins differently than black people.
Okay.
Yes, all right.
That might not get us where we want to go. Not very good.
True. Okay. So who's the, like, which cousin?
Yeah.
Oh, shit.
Who
Who is still here in this chat? Y'all still here? You
Nobody,
ready?
honey. No. They were not ready for that one, darling.
Oh, shit. Oh, hey, HowlRound. Hey, DJ. Hey. Oh.
Another cousin. Ayla, find another cousin.
Oh, no.
Oh, Lord.
Maybe if we could just see, right, okay, hey, Adam, maybe if we could just see if there's one last question. And if not, I have a question for all of you, if that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're
admire your manicure in the meantime, darling.
Baby, I'm gonna plug this, I can talk about this. This was from a character called Reese that I just played in Blumhouse. Welcome to the Blumhouse Live on Amazon Prime last week. I made my television debut. Jordan, see, I did that on purpose to wait. Jordan Fleming, what is your vision for the future? And maybe if we can all answer that, that'll be a beautiful medicine to end with.
Mm-hmm. Nick.
Nick. Nick, can you hear us?
Is Nick there?
Yeah.
Yeah. What is your vision for the future? That was the question.
A vision for the future is an entire. I have the vision of the future. I think queerness is the future, and therefore it's going to run the show. We won't have this idea of supremacy, inferiority, whatever. The power will be horizontal, if at all. Power will be redefined. It'll be more feminine, I think, and it'll be more of a Black woman's notion of power. It'll just, the umbilical cord will go all the way back to the ancestors, and it's just going to look very different. I think the fear that white people have, it's going to be, not, I don't really want to, but okay, the fear that white people have that Black people are going to whatever, kill them, annihilate them, whatever. I just don't, I think there might be a short racial war. Okay, but I don't think that spiritually that's where we are and have been. We haven't fought because
we're not starting it.
Yeah, I don't think we've not fought because we can't. I think we fought because, to be honest with you, on a moral plane, we're on a different level.
Yes.
The progressives are with us.
200 years ahead.
The white progressives are. I think they are totally with us. I think they're kind of lost a little bit, whatever, but it's not. So all that anxiety and stuff is going to give birth. The new world is here. They're looking at it not just on this panel, but in spaces like this as well, with people like us as well. And I just think that's where it's going to go. We are the future. It's right here in front of you, and it's going to be much more feminine. And there might not even be notions of feminine, masculinity, whatever. But I think it's just going to be more spiritual, more open. Our divine nature is going to come out so that all these categories won't be around. We'll be able to reach for each other deeply. And we won't be worried so much about our place in the world in terms of the hierarchies. That's how I see the future for us. And to me, that's what queerness is. It calls out white supremacy's crap. Transness does that. And I think that it's going to wash away. I may not be around for the tail end of it, but the fruits of it, I want to participate fully in that.
I think the future is what we write and what we make. And so whatever vision that future has for the work that we offer to the world is what the future will be. And to build off what Nick was saying, and the strictures and the hierarchies will fall away, and then we can rest. That's the next step. When do we, as TGNC folks, get to rest? Never.
I just want to note that there's this question that pertains to this in the chat about children who are fearful of the future, and for me, this is part of what my vision is about. If our ancestors, once they were free and had the agency to continue to create family, chose not to, we wouldn't be here today. And so for me, I put all of my faith in making sure that there will be a future for the children here to inherit. And that looks like making education the most accessible, or making art the most accessible form of education. It's my guiding principle. It's why I created my company, Shift 23. It's why I'm going to be the first person to create a national franchise of theaters across the country. My vision is always going to be centering liberation for our people and making sure that there is a future where we are not caged. I believe in my lifetime, I will see the abolition of prisons. I believe in my lifetime, I will see an abolition of this thought that we as trans people do not deserve to exist. Because if I do not believe in that, there's no point in being alive here for me. So every day I'm fighting and working for that, because I believe that it's already here and it's already happened. And we're just remembering that it's already happened. And that's our job as artists, to share the remembrance of the future that we're inheriting.
And look, and with the trans experience and fear, the person was talking about that. It's the fear is real, and it's okay to be afraid. It's a survival mechanism. The problem is if you're immobilized and paralyzed by that fear. So the kids can move even while in fear. Yes. Most people move while they're in fear. Most people who are from underrepresented, marginalized communities move while in fear. And as you move, the fear takes on a different shape, because you're moving and you're speaking and you're talking, because then you will reclaim or unclaim or decolonize from that fear. But if you stay paralyzed in that fear, the loop, the purgatorial loop of it goes. So I would say to the kids, talk, move, be active, and just move and leap with faith. Because faith is the only thing that can cancel the fear. And stop trying to create an identity based on your circumstances. That is anti-Black. We create our identity based on what we don't see. We don't look to what we see, because what we see does not reflect who we are. And that's been since the beginning of time. So stop all this stuff of, I don't have a car, therefore I'm a loser. No, or I don't have this and therefore I'm that, or I'm not this and therefore I'm that. You have it. You don't have to, it doesn't have to be a material, that's anti people of color. And the reason they don't celebrate that is because it's of people of color. That's why, because their culture is more, what I hold is who I am. That's not where we come from. And it's okay. You've got to be okay with what they're saying is not okay.
That's what I was going to say, was embrace and redefine what fear is. Right. Fear is an invitation to find joy somewhere else.
That's right.
Oh, say it again.
Fear is an invitation to find joy somewhere else. But you can't sit in fear. You can't be paralyzed by fear. You can't be stymied or stumbled by fear. You have to see it as a tool and a mechanism of transformation, because it is an alert that's saying, honey, you can't stay here no more. You got to go somewhere else. And when you move through fear, in fear, with fear, towards someplace else, but don't ignore it, because see, a lot of people ignore it. That's where these strokes come from. That's where this cancer comes from. You embrace discomfort. You embrace it and you use it as a tool. We've always lived in discomfort.
Right.
The minute they took us off that land and put us on that ship, that was the day we started our journey to discomfort, and yet still we have risen.
Mm.
I remember being in the house, and it was early on in my medical transition. Um, and I was petrified to leave the house uh, because it was so strange. I'd gone out in female form many, many, many times for many years, but just something about, um, you know, doing this during the day and all these sort of inner voices were telling me, they're going to laugh at you, they're going to know. And I was just petrified. What I was able to have was I was able to call up some girlfriends and say, let's just, for me, it wasn't even about like what I was going to achieve. For me, it was about just simply getting out of the house and being outside of my doors of my house, uh, anywhere, standing around, whatever. And so I met some girlfriends and became really close with a group of other trans Black women. We would meet every Tuesday for tea, and that became a weekly thing. And obviously it became easier and easier, and I was very happy to, then I was like looking forward to when I was going out. I was no longer afraid of what people were going to say. And I never would have imagined that I'd have the type of life that I have today, that I'd be able to see some of the things that I've been able to see and experience, performing and traveling and all the different things, and being able to tell my story and share it. But at the same time, it has been discouraging, given the landscape, and seeing that there's people who still don't get the conversation. Again, like this conversation that's been ongoing for the whole week with, I'm not even going to speak their name, major streaming platform. Uh, uh, that's been upsetting and tiresome and discouraging and everything, and hurtful. But it's so encouraging to sit and be able to hear everyone on this panel talking about the fellowship and the future of, the future of theater, but even more than that, the future of our humanity. And so I'm grateful for everyone, Nick, Ayla, Roger, Adam, Jordan, for bringing us together and holding this conversation. I'm grateful to everyone that's been watching. It's been a wonderful experience. And I hope that you'll be able to, we're recording this, so people who aren't here, please share this with anybody you can. Once you get the opportunity to share it. I don't know how that's going to happen, but once you get the opportunity to share it, do it. In the meantime, mark your calendars for the showcase that's happening in 2022. And here in New York, I'm very excited for that. And please look out for the work of these fabulous artists that are on the panel. Thank you very much for joining us, everyone.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very, very much.
Thank you.